When it comes to your 20s, a financial misstep you can really get away from. When it gets into your 30s, a little bit more detrimental when it comes to finances. But when you get to your 40s and so on, you are starting to get a lot closer to retirement, and you really have to make sure that you have a plan for your money. Today's video, we're going to be looking at 11 reasons and solutions on why you need to be planning for retirement and planning for your future. And these are the missteps or money mistakes that people do make when they are getting into their 40s. Starting with number one, guys, which is not having a plan for their money. This one, for me, really hits home. Roughly 30% of Americans have a plan for their money going into their 40s, which means, that's right, 70% do not have a plan of what they're going. This means no budget. This means no financial advisor. This means no financial targets on what they're looking to accumulate before retirement. Now, the solution for this, of course, getting into retirement, you only have 20 years until you're going to hit that mark. It might mean you have to step up your contributions in your 401ks and your IRAs, your HSAs. Now is the time to really buckle down, because this is still the time with 20 years left that you can make and take advantage of the compounding interest. When you started getting into your 50s with only, 10, 15 years till retirement, you're starting to really push the envelope with having the ability to accumulate wealth and really minimize the debt, as well as getting that compounding interest. So make sure, guys, sit down with a financial planner, sit down with a financial investor, make sure you have a budget and know exactly how much money you want to have in that retirement plan when you get there. Number two, maintaining enough liquidity. This is something that we always talk about, guys, when it comes to the emergency fund, saving 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, which for most people is $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in liquid funds. That is right, guys. When a lot of people do have emergencies, they have all of their money tied up in the stock market, tied up in 401ks, tied up in IRAs, all of the money, they're pushing a ton of money into investments, which means when an emergency does happen, they are going right back to borrowing. They are either borrowing from the 401k, they're putting it on credit cards. They are not using the proper budgeting methods to really set aside that emergency fund and make sure that you have enough money. Solution for this, guys, start building the emergency fund, have the emergency fund, and keep the emergency fund liquid. I cannot stress this enough, guys. Again, when you look at your budget and you have 3 to 6 months of liquid savings, that doesn't mean invested in the stock market, invested in bonds, invested in short-term CDs. This means liquid as in high yield savings account, really making sure that you're getting 3 to 5%, which is about average right now on the money that you do have in there. Number three, letting your emergency fund fall behind your growth and your expenses. This is the reason why maintaining a budget is super important, guys. If you've noticed over the last 2 years, things have gotten astronomically more expensive, bigger bills for everything. When you look at the rates on cars, when you look at mortgages, but when you look at grocery bills, when you look at holiday shopping, when you look at gas, everything has gotten more expensive. Making sure you grow your emergency fund to cover what it is now and what your monthly budget is looking like. If you've been tracking it for a while, again, you can kind of see the cycle that the emergency funds have started to grow larger. That is because the costs have begun to get larger. The solution for this, guys, make sure that your emergency fund is keeping up pace with inflation, also keeping up pace, keeping those funds liquid for emergencies if they arise. If you're sticking to 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever it may be, guys, you might have to contribute more money to that emergency fund to keep that on target with being able to really cover an emergency if it does come. Number four, get very complacent about carrying consumer debt. Consumer debt, and it's funny because I had an individual that said, well, most people have debt and most people are supposed to have debt, right? That is wrong, guys. You do not want debt. When you're getting into your 40s, again, this is the prime years, 20 years before retirement, that you want to eliminate all consumer debt. That means paying down vehicles, paying down credit cards. The average credit card balance as of today is $6,500 is the average, guys, which means, of course, there are people that are lower, but there are a lot of individuals that are much higher to bring our average to $6,500. People, again, get way too comfortable with carrying this debt. And in turn, when you break down the numbers, when you look at your credit cards, when you look at your mortgage, your auto loans, your credit cards, any unsecured debt, anything that you have borrowed, you can cross off X amount of every single paycheck that is going towards interest, which is literally throwing your money away every single month. And that is the way that I look at it, guys. You really wholeheartedly have to look at it as you are giving away money. You are giving away a portion of your paycheck. If, let's say, you're giving away $200 every single month towards interest on a variety of different things, making $25 an hour, you are working one full day. That is right, guys. One full day every single month that you work is going to be dedicated to giving that money away because of the debt. Number 5, we get into prioritizing paying off your mortgage. This again is a really big one, guys. Once you eliminate all of your consumer debt, which is everything but your mortgage, even following Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps, when you get to the point of paying off the mortgage, I see a lot of individuals, roughly 40% of people, go into retirement with a mortgage. So they're going from a income to a fixed income, such as Social Security, or taking money out of IRAs, 401ks. It is super difficult to survive in retirement if you are going into retirement and having a mortgage payment on a full month. We see a lot of people, again, in the financial services that I work in, that go in owing, $50, $100, $150,000 on a mortgage, which means you're literally putting away probably about 50% of your Social Security right off the bat is going towards the housing expense. You want to go into retirement having a free and clear house, or not having that home payment, which might mean buckling down the last couple of years, paying it off or paying it down to make it more manageable. Number 6, assuming the remodels will add value to your home. This is one, guys, where home improvements used to make a really big difference when it came to the resale value. But the thing is, it really makes a difference depending on what the remodel is. Is it an update? Is it a remodel? Is it a full, rip out reno? You have to really examine where is going to be the cost basis and what is going to be the return. Some of these you can shop around for a lot of it, guys. You really have to look around. There's about 15 home improvements that do pay for themselves with the returns, but there are a lot which, depending again, exactly how much you're spending in this bucket, that can actually not yield you the return on the home that you're thinking, or it can even cost you more money than you originally put in. Number 7, we get into the child's cost of education over retirement planning. Guys, when it comes to the child's education cost, we break it into really 33s. So what we look at is, number 1, 33% of a child's education is going to be student loans. That is just kind of a rough fact. 33% of it is going to come from grants and scholarships. And the final 33% is going to come from, hopefully, parents that have set money aside for the individual child. Now, if that is not the case, most people, it says roughly 30% of Americans are saving more money for their child's education than they are putting into their retirement savings, which is really backwards, guys. Your kids are going to come out of school. They might have a little bit of debt. They're going to have a high-paying job, or at least have a job where they can repay some of that student loans. Do not make it detrimental for your retirement savings because you're putting too much away for the college funds. You have to make sure, and there has to be a happy medium between the two. Again, you don't want to sacrifice all of your retirement years because, again, you put a couple $100 away into a college fund versus putting into retirement. So make sure, again, working with a financial advisor, that you're going to come up with the best plan for that. Now, number 8, dipping into the retirement funds. This, again, is something that I see that happens way too often. You retire, you want to go out and get a new truck, you want to go out and get a new car. I have seen people dip into retirement accounts for $40, $50, $60, $70,000 to buy a new vehicle, which we know is the biggest depreciation asset that we have, period. Not only do they take it out sometimes earlier because of certain circumstances, but also taking it out possibly with a penalty. Is it really worth it? Not at all, guys. Retirement is meant to substitute your Social Security income that you're getting, not meant for bigger expenses, home improvements, things of that nature. That is not what the retirement fund is really for, is spending all that money before you're well into retirement and looking at those retirement years. Number 9, diversifying your investments. Guys, when you're getting into retirement, diversification is key. You have to get to the point where you're not going to eliminate all risk, but a lot more of it kind of transitions into bonds, transfers into stuff that is really not as volatile. When you're getting into retirement and looking at your portfolio, can you take a 50% reduction? Or like last year in 2022, could you effectively still get through retirement? Seeing a 22% drop in your stock portfolio, for some people, they cannot handle that, especially when you get into the retirement years. This is the time to take your assets, spread it across various areas. Again, looking a lot more in bonds, looking a lot more in different areas where you can really stack up and not see the steady income and the steady growth, but not as volatile as we see with the stock market. But with that being said, guys, number 10, thinking of being risk adverse is a bad thing. That is right, guys. A lot of people, when they're getting into the retirement years, risk averse is looked at as a very bad thing. There, of course, depending on what you're saving, depending what you have on there, taking all of your money out of the stock market might not be beneficial, but again, kind of making a compromise where you might have 40% in bonds, you might have 60% in the stock market, or vice versa, depending how adverse you are. You want to make sure that you're not putting everything into safe money that essentially is going to be eaten up by inflation over the next couple of years, which can be very detrimental. And the final one we look at, guys, is thinking that your best earnings are yet to come. Most of the people, when they get into retirement, because they have access time, means that they are going to have the ability to spend a lot more money. Most people in retirement, especially in the early years of retirement, spend a lot more than they did when they were working. However, they don't have the same income as when they were working. So you might be making $4,000 a month with your traditional job. You move into retirement, you're making $2,200 a month on Social Security, and your expenses increase because now you have a ton of free time on your hands. You want to travel, you want to do other things. You have to make sure, guys, that you have a solid plan on how much money you can take out of your retirement plan and making sure that the fixed income is not going to be in run out before you actually get into retirement. What I see with a lot of retirees is they will go into retirement, they have a mortgage, a lot of the mortgage eats up Social Security, then they like doing things because they have a lot more time. All of a sudden, it hits 5-10 years after retirement, and guess what? They're back to work. That is right, guys. They're right back into the workforce. They're working in a lot of different jobs or a lot of different fields that will allow them to, because they didn't accurately plan for what they were going to spend in their retirement years. So I hope, guys, that it sheds some light onto some of the money mistakes that we see getting into our 40s. Now, personally for me, I am 44, so this really hits home because this is what I'm facing with right now, guys, making sure that I'm saving enough and that I'm really putting enough into a portfolio to make it effective when it comes to retirement. So guys, let me know some of the money mistakes that you have made through your years, 20s, 30s, or 40s, and I'll catch you in the next video.